May 15th, about 2:45. You can see sky spraying powder above these ferocious looking clouds, which are grumbling a little. But I am videoing this you can hear the lightning grumble to document that they are here, and let's see if they yield any serious rain. As I keep saying, they're spraying on top of them when they come through. Off towards the east here, let's take a look. But in the past few times they came through in the past 30 days, they did not yield much rain. And they were clearly spraying above them. That's my opinion. Let's see what happens. You can see the spray powder. So we need a good rain. Rick Miracle reporting. May 15th, about 5:30. Little spray line right there, not continuous. And I hate to be right, but I must tell you, as you can see, a few hours ago with those thunderstorms came through and were rumbling, we got hardly any rain. And all we have now is the cracking earth. So I might just ask, are they controlling the weather and preventing the rain? I videoed the rumbling thunderstorms came through but did not yield any rain. And the sky spraying powder is on top of the clouds, as you can see. That's a cloud below, and that's powder above it. There's a little spray line. So there you have it. Are they preventing the rain? Rick Miracle reporting. May 16th, about 10:30 in the morning. Unbelievable sky spraying today here in Asheville, North Carolina in the mountains. No mistaking it whatsoever. All that you see is powder. Oh my Lord. We are definitely being sprayed like we're bugs. And it might be interesting to note that there is a front seemingly coming through clouds. And I suspect it won't rain much. A lot of powder in the sky. Sky spray. Can't miss the lines. I don't even have to zoom up. That's all powder. Rick Miracle reporting in Asheville. West Asheville. May 16th. Interestingly enough, a nice fresh new spray line you can see right there. That thin one will turn into this thick stuff, as you can plainly see. Now what's really concerning, again, this is looking off towards the east in the mountains of Asheville, is that the storm clouds that came through today were pretty ugly, as you can see. It's 6 o'clock right now, and as you can also see, no significant rain today. Those storm clouds were looking really bad all day. But the ground is cracking. Nothing serious as far as rain goes. But the sky spraying continues. All those straight lines. On top of the clouds, which look like thunderstorms, big rain storm clouds, which are not yielding any significant rain. I'm not saying they don't sprinkle or lightly rain, but generally speaking, it looks like the serious rain is being suppressed. That's my opinion from what I see here. Storm clouds all day and sky spraying on top of them. What other conclusion can we have? What other reason would these rain clouds in springtime, April, May, not be yielding a lot of rain? April showers bring May flowers. Just saying, it is what it is, and it is concerning. Rick Miracle reporting here in the mountains of North Carolina. Well, it's May 17th, 2015, about 1:30 in the afternoon. Rick Miracle here, welcoming you to another document and expanded review. As you have seen in the video, I feel that the sky spraying may be inhibiting the rain. That could be quite a disaster. So anyways, moving on here. This is July 12th, 2014 document. Pentagon admits they are preparing for mass civil breakdown. And it is my contention that they are preparing because they are causing. The New World Order, the New Age. If you've been watching my videos, you know a lot from what I've said. If you've been watching other videos, you know a lot. There's a mass awakening, and I think that's putting the powers that be, the Pentagon, the United Nations, the bought and paid for political leaders, pretty much worldwide, coming from the Masonic lodges, the Illuminati, the Zionist, Vatican, Alphabet Secret Security Services worldwide, major U.S. corporations involved making huge money, even Walmart now. So, July 12, 2014, Pentagon admits they are preparing for mass civil breakdown. So I'm going to interject on this document what I perceive to be deception, lies. A new U.S. document of defense, DoD, research program admits that the Pentagon has long been concerned about widespread social breakdown. Even more striking of an admission is the fact that they have been funding universities to create models of the dynamics, risk, tipping points that would all be part of a large-scale civil unrest in the United States. And again, I've quoted this stuff so many times. Years ago, Alan Greenspan said before Congress that they were running a program called Creative Economic Destruction. And I printed that out years ago. And then later on, when I went to find it again, all I could find was Alan Greenspan says they're running a program of economic destruction. For some reason, they took out the word creative. Anyways, one of the senators on a video on YouTube that you can watch, he asked Alan, won't people get hurt? And Alan said, yeah, some people will get hurt. They're taking down the system. They have planned to put microchips in everybody. It's going to be a surveillance society. Communism, forced socialism, call it what you will, but people will not be free. They have to remove the arms. The Pacific Trade Agreement that's going on right now, that they won't let anybody read They have to go under armed guard and take a secret security type of course or lecture before they're even allowed to go look at the Pacific Trade Agreement. So a lot of people speculate that it's going to have a provision in there to remove the guns from the people, which will probably be an announcement by the president. And then when the people revolt, this is just one plausible option that people are talking about. And then of course they'll institute martial law. And this is all happening now, May 17th. Jade Helm is in place now and supposed to be operational July 15th to September 15th, 2015. So they're going to have all the troops out there with tanks and missile launchers. Go look up Jade Helm. Look up Helm. Anyways, this program, the DoD, Department of Defense program, was funded under the overarching authority of a number of U.S. military agencies. Now, a lot of people are aware that the Obama administration, who Obama is a puppet, it's people higher than him. If he doesn't do what he's told, very likely, like Kennedy, like Lincoln, said they would give him an unlimited budget and resources to remove the guns from the people, citizens of the USA. The citizens will resist. There's a plan in place. And as I keep saying, it seems like the sky spraying is inhibiting the rain, obviously causing problems for survival, crops, animals. Moving on to this document here. This program, costing millions of dollars, has been designed for the purpose of immediate and long-term warfighter relevant insights development. So when they pull this trigger and however they're going to cause it, crashing the dollar, issuing a gun removal order, martial law, using HARP or something to cause a major earthquake, Yellowstone explosion, nuclear explosion in a city like Senator Lindsey Graham said might happen in Charleston. So the Pentagon explains that the purpose is for senior officials and decision makers in the defense policy community to form a contingency plan in the event of wide-scale social unrest. There's one of the things that's a deception. A contingency plan in the event of a wide-scale social unrest. They're making it happen. They even say it's not if, it's when. They want to crash the system. They want to change society, as George Bush said numerous times. Senior and junior. And the Pope. And Obama. And many others, Kissinger. A new world order is coming. And there will be a lot of blood spilled. And like the Georgia USA Guidestones say, they want a world population of 500 million. We got almost 7 billion. So it doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to realize that 6+ billion have to be eliminated. This all started back in 2008 when the global banking system formed the impetus for the DoD Minerva Research Initiative. So when in 2008 they crashed the stock market, millions of people lost fortunes. Much of America, people were wiped out. You took your money out because everything was going down. You didn't know, most people didn't know, they were playing a game. Just like on 911, somebody was had sold their stock in certain U.S. airlines. 911 was an inside job. The DoD then decided to partner with universities in order. So when they say with partner, they decided to give them grant money to produce something that they wanted, a report that they could use as a tool, justifying why they're doing things. to improve the DoD's basic understanding of the social, cultural, behavioral, political forces that shape regions of the world of strategic importance of the U.S. So they wanted to study the enemy, the citizens of the U.S., which areas were religious, Bible Belt areas, which people were more liberal, people who would most likely resist, people who would go along, people who were strong and courageous, people who were cowardly, people who were apathetic, didn't care. People who could be bribed, people who can't be bribed. A lot of scientists, as we've talked about in my previous videos, strangely have been dropping, dying, falling out of ski lifts, drowning in pools. Banksters, all worldwide. And when you look at the list, JP Morgan, JP Morgan, JP Morgan, JP Morgan. What's with that? And then the administration removing generals and colonels, long-term military officials. There's a long list of these people being taken out of their jobs, forced retirement, accused of sexual scandals and secrecy divulsion, telling their girlfriend something. Okay, one of the products of this was the Cornell University-led study, which was managed by the U.S. Air Force, of scientific research. It's aimed to develop a model of the dynamics of a social movement, mobilization, and contagions. Well, the movies have certainly given us a movie like Divergent, Hunger Games. Football halftime shows for the last several years have all given us satanic rituals. Go look it up on the internet. Forcing the homosexual agenda on the world, accusing people who will not go along as haters, discrimination. The Pentagon and Cornell hoped that this would determine the critical mass tipping point. So they want to know when the people will finally break enough is enough and rebel. Of social contagions by studying digital traces, for instance, the 2011 Egyptian revolution. There's another deception. They sent instigators in. They sent money and bought people off. Military intelligence, Pentagon. General Wesley Clark said they planned it. He was told by the Pentagon. So when you read these press releases, and we're being lied to, everything. The 2011 Russian Duma elections, the 2012 Nigerian fuel subsidy crisis, and the 2000 Giza Park protests in Turkey, just like Ferguson or the recent Baltimore and Florida, things that the newspaper owned by the Illuminati, the Zionist Jewish folks, the Vatican, Masonic people, elites, all that stuff in the newspapers is deceiving you, misleading you. And a lot of people are worn out, and they're betting on that too. They want people to just surrender when it really comes to the trigger point. And then they're going to force vaccines on people, which I suspect will be a nice way to cull the population. You know, they probably have possibly two sets of vaccines, and they got computerized programs that have been monitoring everybody. We all know that's true. So when you get in line for your forced vaccine at your local Walmart, maybe, Jade Helm is going on right now, 15, and Walmart seems to be a part of it. Will they look at the computer screen and give you vaccine B, which could be a death vaccine, or vaccine A, which would be your microchip? The study and program looks at Twitter and Facebook posts and conversations in order to identify individuals mobilized in a social contagion and when they become mobilized. So if the stuff hits the fan and people start talking about it, the computer is going to know about it, and a red alert's going to go off at the Pentagon. A related project at the University of Washington, formed this year, seeks to uncover the conditions under which political movements aimed at large-scale political and economic change originate, along with their characteristics and consequences. So they want to try to get in people's heads and know how people think and beat it to the punch, probably with a fake press release or a false flag, saying a comet's coming, saying Ebola is spreading, another plague, or saying the Russians are attacking, saying the Chinese are attacking, saying Mexico is attacking, who they just sold $1.2 billion worth of weapons to, and $90 billion apparently sold to Saudi Arabia. Look this stuff up. This project is being managed by the U.S. Army Research Office and focuses on a large-scale movements involving more than 1,000 participants of enduring activity. It will cover over 58 countries in total. They're doing it here in the United States. Our own governmental structure has turned on us, it appears. In many ways, the sky spraying, the lack of rain, the animals, the pH studies. There's videos you can watch. What in the world are they spraying? Why in the world are they spraying? Websites where you can see it, that they have these government organizations controlling the weather. Supposedly for climate change. And climate change, the word alone is a little bizarre. When does the climate not change? So they passed away with the global warming, and prior to that it was global cooling. It was in my previous videos. During the early part of the 1900s, they were sincerely worried about global cooling, and they were trying to devise ways to create global warming so that they could melt northern Canada and northern Russia, the Arctic and all that, for mineral resources, land. Their ideal thing was to get rid of all the ice worldwide. I mean, half the world is under ice if you consider northern Russia and Canada and the poles and South America, South Pole. Anyways, the DOT's Minerva initiative funded a project last year as well in order to determine who does not become a terrorist and why. It's worth noting that this study conflates with what seems to simply be peaceful activists with supporters of political violence. We read the following in the study. There was one person participating in a military type training to subdue rioters and protesters and other people like that, and he said, yeah, we have to worry about constitutionalists. Why are we worried about constitutionalists? The United States Constitution is what gives us our freedom. Without that, we don't have those rights in the Bill of Rights. And which is worth noting, and when I noticed President Obama speaking recently, the flag behind him has a gold fringe around it. Go look that up. Look up, get that gold fringe off my flag. Apparently it doesn't mean constitutional courtroom. It means martial law courtroom. And did you know when you go before a judge in a martial law courtroom, you look over and you see the gold fringe around the flag, once you acknowledge that court, let's say you plead innocent, or no contest, whatever, or say you want a trial, martial law court with the gold fringe, they don't have to do trials. They don't do trials. They make a judgment on the spot, mostly. So here you are in America, righteous and thinking, and you're indignant, and you want to have your day in court. And if you're smart and you look over at the flag and it's got a gold fringe, you're in a martial law court. And when you say you're not interested, and then the judge will look over at the cop or whoever's there and say, what happened? And he'll say guilty and take you out back and shoot you or imprison you. There is no due process. Look that up. Get that gold fringe off my flag. Gold fringe martial law. Look the keywords up. Learn. What you have to do is when you see the flag with the gold fringe, you have to say, I don't recognize this court having any rights over me. And then they can't sentence you. Supposedly. Study up on it. Might be important. Alright, in every context we find many individuals who share the demographic, family, cultural, and socio-economic background of those who decided to engage in terrorism. When has there been any terrorism in the USA? If you investigate what they say was terrorism, like Sandy Hook School, you will see it's government-created fabrication. And they pass laws that make it legal for them to use propaganda to fool you. Look that up. It's legal for them to do that. Okay, people who decide to engage in terrorism, in Iraq, I guess that would be the father who had a baby and a wife at home and needed water and food, and came out there and demanded it, and he was called an insurgent, and probably machine gunned to death. Alright, to decide to engage in terrorism yet refrain themselves from taking up armed militancy. Even though they were sympathetic to the end goals of armed groups, the field of terrorism studies has not, until recently, attempted to look at this control group. This project is not about terrorists, but about supporters of political violence. So if people don't want to go along with the New World Order and being microchipped and see the unwanted people massed murdered, vaccines or however they will do it, then of course, if you resist, you are an insurgent and a terrorist. If you don't want to accept as law gay marriage and all that stuff, the other decadent things they're doing, perverted things, the government in the UK and in the United States at high levels, caught in the act of pedophilia, and in the UK apparently was in the paper, that it went up to such high levels in government that for national security reasons they had to cease and desist on the investigation and punishing the perverted culprits. The Franklin cover-up in the United States, look it up. Bohemian Grove, where they have a big fire, where political leaders have been photographed there, where they planned the nuclear bomb, where they throw a baby in a fire, calling it the cremation of care. Look it up. Who is the terrorist here? It's certainly not the people who are blind to what's going on. It's the aggressive government, the people who are sky spraying us, using the HARP system, planned all that stuff in the Middle East, as General Wesley Clark says on videos on YouTube that you can look up and watch. It was a long list I printed out today of an email a friend of mine sent me, 3 pages, of during the Clinton administration, certain people like the Clintons' attorney and stuff like that, campaign finance people. The list is 3 pages long of conveniently people who died of mysterious means. Jumping out of tall buildings. Or 3 pages, Clinton administration. And as George Bush said, if you're not with us, you're against us. On the 911 inside job. Last year in 2013, Minerva funded a University of Maryland project that was formed in collaboration with the U.S. Department of Energy's Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. Its purpose was to gauge the risk of civil unrest due to climate change. Again, when has the climate not changed? I can think back in history, the 1920s, 1930s, the Dust Bowl. In the Bible, in Egypt, Joseph telling the king, stock up on grain, there's going to be 7-year famine. Look at climate ice core samples, images on the internet that I've shown you, and the climate always changes. This 3-year, $1.9 million project was formed to develop models to anticipate what could happen to societies under a range of potential climate change scenarios. And they have, in the news and the media, they have thing about Planet X, Nibiru, the destroyer coming. They're saying the earthquakes are increasing, volcanoes are going off, Yellowstone might explode, the dollar might crash, the water supply, the drought in California, while they're spraying offshore, steering the jet stream. So they're not planning for it. They do these studies, and they're planning their military warfare and strategies against the population. The Georgia USA Guidestones tell us that. In 6 or 7 languages. I went there and took pictures of the place. Signed R.C. Christian or something, which to me is the Rosicrucians, which are a secret mystery school, pagan religion, magic, Kabbalah, witchcraft organization like the Freemasons, Illuminati, Zionism, and even all the shenanigans in the Vatican. And look up Lucifer in the vaults of the Vatican. They have a gigantic painting of Lucifer, the light bearer. And then the Pope recently, in a video that was published, addressed to all the churches that there's no reason for us to be divided any longer. We need to unite. What does he mean? There's no reason to be divided any longer. And he's parley to the new world order. He said so. In a one world currency. So the Vatican Church, which has always been probably evil, not that the Christian people, like myself, most citizens across the world are oblivious to the evil goings on behind the scenes. Even the Freemasons, lower level people, are dupes. They're in there for business connections, social gatherings, political support. And if they're ever called upon to do something evil, they've sworn secrecy on the threat of death if they expose what they talk about inside the Masonic lodges, which are worldwide. According to Professor David Price, a cultural anthropologist at St. Martin's University in Washington, D.C., and author of Weaponizing Anthropology, Social Science in the Service of the Militarized State. Social Science in Service of the Militarized State. They want to bring about our militarized state. The Hunger Games movie. Get it? When you look at the individual bits of many of these projects, they sort of look like normal social science, textual analysis, historic research, and so on. But when you added these bits up, they all share themes of legability with all the distortions of oversimplifications. They're passing legislation to make everything they're doing legal. Minerva is farming out the piecework of empire in ways that can allow individuals to disassociate their individual contributions from the larger project. So much being done in secret behind the scenes by these people. And their sheriffs on this Jade Helm talking on videos that say the Jade Helm came to our town, asked for us to be allowed to participate and do their activities in our town. And when the sheriff said no, they went above the sheriff's head to elected officials to bear pressure on the sheriff. And then when they said no, then briberies were offered. Bribes. And probably worse. Threats. Price has previously exposed the Pentagon's Human Terrain System, HTS program. That program was designed for the purpose of embedding social scientists within military field operations. So this whole 9/11 war after the Middle East, where all of us USA citizens, many, stood by and watched those Arabs slaughtered, countries overthrown one at a time, that General Wesley Clark said that an individual in the Pentagon told him was all planned. The beast that did that has now turned its eye towards the citizens of the USA. And over in Europe and other places, I am sure. The world, New World Order, the Pacific Trade Agreement that they won't let anybody read right now. that will probably have a paragraph in there that says that the people in the United States are not too allowed to have guns under this specific worldwide trade agreement, and so that the president will have the military and the police try to enforce that treaty agreement. People will resist. Jade Helm is in place. Computer software programmers are in place. They will know what's on your Facebook, your tweets, your cell phone, everything you do. That might be a suggestion to your resisting. Alright, once embedded, they would routinely conduct training scenarios in a set of regions within the United States, according to what Price said. Sometimes it's hard to read somebody else's writing. Price explained further that the HTS training scenarios adapted COIN, C-O-I-N, counterinsurgency. See, when we resist here in the United States, we're going to be insurgents. Just like they said those people in Iraq, who had nothing to do with 9/11, of course. And 4, Afghanistan, Iraq, to fit within the context of domestic situations. In the U.S., where the local population was seen from the military perspective as threatening, the establishment, balance of power, influence, and challenging law and order. So they've corporatized all the farming and set up all the Walmarts and Targets and Home Depots and Office Depots and put all the mom and pop businesses out of business across the nations, desolating a lot of the downtown areas. So they caused this problem of challenging law and order when people don't have any money to buy food and want to fight back. You will be a terrorist or an insurgent. The computer will recognize it by what you say and do on the computer, phone, whatever. What do you think the Pentagon is so worried about? Could it be all of the incidences of police brutality and murder which are leading to mass protest and unrest like we saw in Ferguson and Baltimore? Well, I thought I'd add a bit more. Basically, I read a lot of books. I've got almost 400 videos on YouTube, documentaries, about over 100 on book reviews in a series called Freemasonry and Satanism, comma, book review, and then, of course, I have a comma and the title of the book. So let's say I would have a book review on this book, HAARP. In many of my videos, I discuss HAARP, the ultimate weapon of the conspiracy. There's much more to this electromagnetic spectrum and energy than people know. One story I'll tell you that's brief is there was this one scientist who was fascinated, like Nikola Tesla, but he was fascinated with something called Jacob's ladder. And basically it's two poles with electric charges, and they have this electric charge from one side to the other going. You can see the belt of electricity. Jacob's ladder just rotates an electric charge between the two poles. Look it up. So anyways, he's built this thing and it's working, and they're both, the electric charge is going between the two poles. You've seen an arc, like on a spark plug. So anyways, he was leaning over, and a pen dropped out of his pocket and fell in between Jacob's ladder, the two poles. And poof, it disappeared. And he goes, wow, that's weird. And he looked across the room 2 or 3 feet on the floor, and there it was. So he was fascinated. He went and got a penny or something, dropped it in there. It seemed to move through time. And so he wanted to build a bigger one, and he didn't have the money, so he stole a transformer down at the nearby electric company. He got caught, because when he turned it on, it caused some serious disturbances. Got a bug bother me here. Disturbances with the power company blowing out a transformer or something. But he built a bigger one, and he was able to toss a rabbit in there. And poof, and the rabbit was a distance away and alive. So the story gets even crazier. He builds a huge one, gets a ladder, and he jumps through it. This was in Nexus magazine. So remember that story. And he winds up going back in time. He doesn't even know anybody. He doesn't have any money. And he went and saw people that he knew later on, when he was, you know, they were together. And they didn't know who he was because it's back in time. So he tried to convince people what he had done. And again, I read this with fascinating, and I take it with a grain of salt. Except for the fact, there's a lot of supporting evidence it might be true. So when I talk about HAARP, with these big microwave transmitters all over the world strategically placed, and I'm aware of this opening portals causing vortexes or whatever, and there's several books in my series of Freemasonry and Satanism. One book is called Oddities, and they would have whales appear in Wisconsin out in the field, a whale, and many other things. So my logical analysis, knowing what I know about engineering and science and stuff with Jacob's Ladder, and other things, which we'll get to in a moment, is that probably out in the ocean there was a gigantic arc of lightning, which created some kind of vortex or portal where the whale was, and it got wound up in Wisconsin in the field. Big thick book, this thing of oddities, of things like this happening. And if you read enough books and you know enough of the puzzle, you can guess at it. So one only wonders, my point on this, is what can these microwave transmitters, here's Nikola Tesla's device he built in New York, if you can see it. That was supposed to be quite devastating. And show you a picture here. So they know what to do when they turn that HAARP system on. They can create these bubbles and these forces. See the shapes? They're steerable. So knowing this stuff is concerning, that they have strategically built these all over the world. And mobile ones on big barges, floats. Meanwhile, went into that as a long road, officials in our government planning for some kind of devastation, as we just read about in that document review, since the 60s or probably earlier. The government's been building and stocking up supplies on underground tunnels and bases. Why? Then I have this other book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, I read a long time ago. John Perkins admits all being paid by huge corporations and other governmental agencies. Huge corporations are the government these days. To go around the world and convince presidents and leaders of other countries to borrow millions, billions of dollars, knowing they would get bankrupt, telling them that if you borrow this money and we put a big dam in or something, and destroy the native habitat, and if the natives don't go along with being displaced and having their habitat destroyed, they would machine gun them, kill them. These books are out there. And I talk about overpopulation now, the propaganda, and people will buy it. What they don't know is there's many books, and we've gone over these in my previous videos, but they wrote these in the 60s and 70s after World War II. They were writing books with, here it says, food per capita, agricultural capital, in 1969. By the Club of Rome, another occultic, Masonic, Illuminati. Rome, I need to say anymore? Look at that, Club of Rome. So, they come up with all this data. Back then, they calculated all the aluminum in the world, and copper, and they gave themselves reasons why they had to get rid of a lot of people so that the resources on Earth would last for them. That's what it says here on page 57 and 56. Pause your computer and look at it. So 69, there's more books I have on this subject. They were already planning to somehow get rid of people. And who were planning? The hidden dangers of the rainbow. These are the secret mystery schools, the Zionism, Hitler's Germany, the gay movement, the satanic halftime shows on the football things. And I've mentioned this before, it's too bizarre to even believe, but when you look it up, you're going to find out it is true. Eurovision is the version of American Idol, TV singers in England, Europe, Eurovision. And the winner of last year, 2014, was Conchita Wurst. The head looked like Jesus' head, long hair and the beard, and the body was a woman in a silky dress. If you look at a picture of the devil, it's a goat's head and a woman's breast. Anyway, so Conchita means sausage. Conchita Wurst. Wurst means sausage, and Conchita means a female part. And the head was like Jesus, the body with a silky dress, slick body. Singing the song, Phoenix Rising, with the words in it, "You Can't Stop Us." It's the Rainbow Coalition, the rainbow is the symbol for the New Age. And this book tells all the secret doctrine of Helena Blavatsky, Alice Bailey, Benjamin Creme, all right on this page. Pause it and read it. Go get the book. The Antichrist is now here. They call it the Christ. So they want people, they're trying to feverishly, and you talk to anybody and mention Jesus to anybody these days, they're going to go, "I don't want to hear about it, shut up." What they don't know is they're planning for an Antichrist and New World Order, microchipping, killing, and devil worship. Lucifer. All the Masonic lodges, Illuminati, Zionism, Rosicrucians, Hollywood, the Vatican, the people running the government. They want to live like in Hunger Games, and everybody else is going to be destined to be slaves or dead. To eliminate the opate by Rabbi Marvin Edelman. Opate means a drug that makes people that they depend on. And in this case, it's the belief in Jesus or God is an opate drug to people. It gives them peace and confidence and support and strength. So they need to eliminate people's belief in God and Jesus. And the people who are doing it, according to this rabbi, who was the leader of the USA Jewish Congress, so I guess he would know. And he wrote a couple books, Volume 1 and Volume 2. And one of the things he was involved with, there was a Jewish building in Boston, I think, and another organization wanted the building and blackmailed the government there to get the building away from them. All this goes into the political arena. It says right here on page 41, a cult was established throughout history dedicated to the all-seeing eye. In a book by Robert Keith Spencer exposing the cult, he makes much of the astounding fact that the symbol, which is a reverse seal of the Great Seal of the United States and on the US dollar bill, had been cloaked in mystery, so much so that the custodian of the Great Seal refused to allow any examination of the files. So they won't let people look at the files for the creation of the Great Seal, and then also that's on the dollar bill. Spencer reproduces some articles by Theodore Roosevelt's granddaughter, Edith Kermit Roosevelt, exposing some activities of the cult in 1962. The cult! Like I said, The Dangers of the Rainbow is a whole thick book exposing all the cults all over the country that are involved. The rainbow, get it? The New Age symbol is the rainbow. The gay agenda symbol is the rainbow. Get it? Got it? Leader Jewish rabbi. If you go on the computer and look up Zionism in images, you will see that there are many Jewish people trying to warn us, protesting and everything, again, about the Zionists, which are the same as the high-level Freemasons, Illuminati, the Vatican secrets. Then there's another book that was written by an insider, Report from Iron Mountain. And this book here was a manual designed, the government took some top elitist all over the United States, put them in a place called Iron Mountain. That's why it's called Report from Iron Mountain, which was a military base. And they had to come up with a solution if peace should break out. How could they still control the people? So what they did is they had to create other problems instead of war, which was poverty, environmental destruction, even the threat of alien and UFOs. Everything that's going on today, even weather, chaos. So they have a whole book here, and one of the people who participated in that research document for the government on what to do if peace should break out. To create all these fabricated, you don't believe me, read it right there. Report from Iron Mountain on the possibility and desirability of peace. 1967. So they were planning on all this anarchy and chaos that in my document review that they're trying to find out how to see who's involved. They planned all this that we're going through today. They want a new world order. It is elitist. They want to bring back the old age where everybody was slaves and the few elites lived in huge palaces. And peel back one evil and find another. Mask of the Illuminati. What began as a simple scholarly pursuit ends in a waking nightmare. That's what we're living in right now, people. A nightmare. Sir John Babcock, endowed with wealth and a healthy dose of curiosity, has stumbled onto an ancient order. With what he now knows, there will be no turning back, even if he wants to. Not after he is trained as an initiate and knows of their perverted lust. I told you, they're into this pedophilia thing. Insane. Look it up on the internet. You won't want to know, and you probably don't want to see the videos. And the murders. Not even when growing terror sends him trembling through Europe, trying to stop the unstoppable. Just gets crazier. The cult of the all-seeing eye. This is the United Nations meditation room. The Temple of Understanding. This guy goes into great detail of how the United Nations is a part of the secret mystery school cult, the Illuminati, satanic worship. Goes into great details here. I read this a long time ago, and one of my videos has a lot of this in there. I have a whole video on this book, actually. The symbolism is everywhere. They even have people now getting these all-seeing eyes all tattooed on their body. The Montauk Project. This is where I'm getting back to Jacob's Ladder earlier. Preston Nichols and Peter Moon. Peter Moon's pretty famous. So what they did at Montauk, believe it or not, I'll read what it says in the back of the book. The Montauk Project chronicles the most amazing and secretive research project in recorded history, starting with the Philadelphia experiment of 1943. That's where they put the microwave transmitters on this big battleship, I think in one of the Philadelphia waterways. And microwave transmitters. What they were trying to do is they wanted to create some kind of electromagnetic shield around the ship so you couldn't see it. That's logical. But what happened, they didn't expect. The ship disappeared, like the Jacob's Ladder guy with the ink pen, and showed up 200 miles down the coast with some of the people embedded half in the bulkheads and half out. Imagine seeing a body where the waist was actually in part of the metal and the feet were in the aisle inside and the head was on the outside. The guy was dead. Some people with an arm like that who were still alive. So apparently they moved during this vortex transfer. Invisibility experiments were conducted aboard the USS Eldridge that resulted in a full-scale teleportation of the ship and crew. 40 years of massive research ensued, culminating in bizarre experiments at the Montauk Point that actually tapped the powers of creation and manipulating time itself. The Montauk Project bridges the modalities of science with the most esoteric magic, witchcraft, techniques ever imagined, and finally catapults us to the thresholds of the stars. We all know something is out there, but we're not sure exactly what. This book, at long last, begins to provide some solid clues. It gets even worse. They would build these vortex energy tunnels, and they would push children through them in time. No way to retrieve them. And apparently, on the base, which is on Long Island, and you can look this all up, in one thing, when the guy's sitting in the chair with all the electronics hooked up to him, because you can manifest things with this reality technology, and he envisioned this monster, and right out of thin air appeared this demonic beast that started tearing things up. So there's more to reality than people know, and you can believe it or not, but there's just too many books. The government was into remote viewing, still is into remote viewing. It started out in Russia, and it says right here, page 67, the Russians have done much research in the search for PSI genes that promote and mediate remote viewing. Their greatest achievements lie in the discovery of the biophysical fields involved in psychotronics. This has led to the Russians developing biological basis of remote viewing. And everybody knows there were prophets in the past who saw things, and this is old news. Even Jesus casting out a dozen times in the Bible demonic entities possessing people, priests performing exorcists. In the past, angels appearing before people. We are spiritual beings in biological bodies after all. So there is something to this science, and it's probably not so crazy when you can remember. We are spiritual beings in a biological body. When we die, we go back to where we came from. And I'm sure Jack the Ripper is probably not going to be at the place where I go, or you go. Boston Strangler. And then probably now a lot of the politicians and leaders worldwide into this Rainbow Coalition group. Remote viewing is the ability to travel out of one's body to remote locations. Tim Ryfat. Got videos on YouTube. You can go watch them. Just trying to be brief here and try to point out what is really going on in the world right now. The coming insurrection. Published in 2007. The book you hold in your hands has become the principal piece of evidence in an anti-terrorism case in France, directed against 9 individuals who were arrested on November 11, 2008, mostly in the village of Tarnac. They have been accused of criminal association for the purposes of terrorist activities on the grounds that they were to have participated in the sabotage of overhead electrical lines on France's national railways. So when they do declare martial law in the United States, which it looks like they're working at doing with Jade Helm and some other things, and the government preparing and doing strategies and creating software, when people resist the New World Order, and you go cut down some electrical wires or water supply to the military base. Alright, New Age. I did this many times in my previous videos. This magazine was put out by the Freemasons. See that bird on the top there? The double-headed eagle is a representation of the phoenix. I just told you about Conchita Wurst winning Eurovision, singing the song Phoenix Rising with the words "You Can't Stop Us." This is a Freemasonic book, 1970, called The New Age, which is the Rainbow Group. You see how it all fits? So the lodges all over everybody's city, square, and town recruit young men from the towns, and then they really looking for is they want to find out whether you're a good guy or a propensity and go along with doing evil. If you're a good guy, you're never going to get past the 3rd degree, Master Mason, and you enjoy all the benefits of the weekly, monthly meetings and other things. But if you're proven and you can be blackmailed, you can move up into much greater levels of authority. Right, here's a picture with the bird in the back. These are your Masonic lodges as the Phoenix bird. I've got about 5 of these. They're in my previous videos. And then Webster Griffin Tarpley wrote this book, 911 Synthetic Terror. And all I got to tell you, he dwells into 911. Look at my tabs. There's no doubt about it. What was Bush doing? He was in Florida reading My Pet Goat. In the lodges, they bring in a goat and they make the men naked, ride the goat, or have sex with goats. You can't believe this stuff in the Freemasonic lodges. It's part of the Luciferian cult. But Webster Tarpley writes this in here. And people who were witnesses and the Mossads, here's page 100. The Mossads, that would be the Secret Service for Israel. False flag Al-Qaeda cell. Rashid Abib Sabek, the head of the Palestinian Preventive Security in the Gaza Strip, said on Friday, December 6, 2002, that his forces had identified a number of the Palestinian collaborators. So remember, in every society there are people who can be bought and paid for and bribed. $25,000, and so there's not a lot. Even in the United States, people will turn against we the people and turn in their fellow man for money and all that. We have a lot of bad people. Palestinian collaborators who had been ordered by Israeli security agencies to work in the Gaza Strip under the name Al-Qaeda. So Israel is getting some of these insider Palestinians to work in the Gaza Strip under the name of Al-Qaeda. Al Jazeera TV reported that the Palestinian authorities had arrested a group of Palestine collaborators collaborating with Israel's occupation in Gaza who were trying to set up an operation there under the name of bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. So the CIA was the one who trained and sponsored bin Laden. Everybody knows that. So he was CIA created Al-Qaeda, which means the base. And so all the stuff you see in the news where Palestinians are launching rockets at Israel, it's the bought and paid for collaborators so that they can blame it on the Palestinians, because the Palestinians really did it. But they were collaborators, bought and paid for, traitors to their own people. They use this propaganda in the news. And they're doing it now with all this craziness with Jade Helm going on in the U.S. and a lot of other things. Scares in the news, Ebola, bird flus, earthquakes, volcanoes, dollar crashing, it's just everybody. Baltimore, Ferguson. Meanwhile, if you go check the news, they're raging in Syria. Assad is being taken down. They're moving forward at full speed, trying to destroy that nation. The Pentagon, the Zionists, the Vatican, NATO, the Illuminati, the banksters for the New World domination. And if you don't believe me, here's another famous Jewish author, Henry McCall, Ph.D., from Canada. Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. If you have any doubts about anything I just said, Go get this book. Go look up Henry Macau and see some of his writings. And he is going to tell all about everything. Here we go. British Jewry. So the British Jews were trying to stop the Zionism. And if you go look up Zionism in images, as I keep saying, you will see many decent Jews out there trying to stop this Luciferian order of Jews who turned against the worship of God and are called Zionists. So you got the good Jews fighting the bad Jews, you got the good Christians fighting the bad Christians, you got people who are not religious at all, who are good, trying to find people who are not religious of all that are evil. Some people, so highest Illuminati defector, Rothschild rule with Druid witches. I keep telling you, all this is witchcraft. And if you look up CERN, you will find there's a lot of concern with CERN, that they're trying to open up a portal like we just discussed with the ship in the Philadelphia experiment going 200 miles down the waterway, or the Jacob's Ladder with the pen falling out of the guy. And there's many more examples. Or the one there on Project Montauk where they were shoving children and other people into time portals, knowing they could never come back. And so they would wind up 1,000,000 years in the past. And then we read in the newspapers that, oh my God, we discovered a gold chain on a skeleton that's 1,000,000 years old. But they don't tell you that at Montauk they were pushing bodies into the other dimension, into the past or into the future. So what are they doing with CERN? What are they doing with the sky spraying? Why is the earth cracking? Even in my backyard I noticed, or I look around the bushes and plants, it's cracking. Jewish author, famous Jewish author, PhD, Canadian. It says right here on the back of his book, the Luciferian principle is the art of concealing darkness in light, war in peace, and finally bondage and liberation from self-restraint. In this way, a people are seduced into embracing their own destruction. We the people need to, en masse, unite. And that's the only way we're going to stop this thing. Because when they pull the trigger, and 100 million people in the USA right now are probably on Social Security or food stamps, and can't buy anything within a few days, what do people do when they're starving? What the craziness, the riots, the protests? They're going to make the insanity happen, it seems. Rick Miracle reporting. Thank you for watching my videos. Leave a comment, give me a thumbs up.